My. Aren't you my little songbirds in the cafeteria? Weren't they with you?
Who, these guys?
Well, I'm sure you've learned the school song by now. You better know it. Because this time, if you don't get it right, you're suspended for 10 days each. Now, is that clear? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right, then. School song. Let me hear it.
All right, fellas. Let them hear it.
Fair East Side. Fair East Side. Fair East Side. By thy side will stand and always praise thy name. Praise thy name, praise thy name. To ever, yeah. Lend our hearts and hands to help increase thy fame. Ooh, Lord, the honor, yeah, of old side, cause for our loyalty, loyalty, so cheap.
All right. Who taught you that? Answer me. I know you didn't do it yourselves. Sams,
What?
who taught you this song? Speak up!
Mrs. Powers.
This is Powers, eh? Come with me, all of you.
Batman! What the hell is the bat for? They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
Oh my God, all this long I've been talking and y'all guys ain't hear me. This is crazy work. So I played Crazy Joe. I played how these children, these millennium kids, they're different from when I was growing up. And a lot of reasons why they're different is because they're misdiagnosed. Um, if you guys can hear me, just let me know in the comments. So, a lot of African American people do not know what ODD is, what is autism, what is ADHD, what is ADD. They don't know. And so a lot of children have not had evaluations, mental health evaluations, educational evaluations, to see if they have they're developmentally delayed. And one of the biggest diagnoses that kids are not diagnosed for is it's called ODD, and is oppositional defiant disorder. Actually, my son has it. That's why I know a lot of it about it. And I can't share, but I have done a lot of research on this, and I will make a short and I will put this information in a little video. But ODD is a behavior disorder in children and adolescents characterized by persistent patterns of anger, irritable, and defiant behavior. Symptoms include arguing with adults, refusing to follow rules, and blaming others for mistakes, with the behavior causing significant impairment in school, at home, and with their peers. An early diagnosis by a qualified professional is crucial, as ADD can be mistaken for normal defiant behavior and may lead to other mental health issues if left untreated, right? So then I Googled CPS, which is Chicago Public School Systems, and they have a tracking system that generates data related to students' health and behavior, such as mental illness resources, how many times they've been suspended, suspension rate for disruptive behavior, and a number of students that have individual education plans, which they are called IEPs, for various disabilities, but does not provide a specific breakdown for ODD diagnosis, right? Most students suspended in high school are the result of students' defiant, disruptive behavior, school rule violations, which are behaviors associated with ODD. But these statistics directly do not indicate directly a formal diagnosis, because a lot of African Americans do not get their children diagnosed, get them psychological evaluations, learning educational evaluations. A lot of times they are in denial, right? Just like there's a laughing disorder. So when people who and they've done these studies on like serial killers and people who break the law and laugh about it. So a lot of times they're not laughing because they're happy that they did it. They're laughing because it's a mechanism. It's a defense mechanism. It's part of their anxiety. Um, so as I go a little further, so as of 2024-2025 school year, approximately 5,400 students in Chicago public schools have an individual education program, which is an IEP. I'm going to repeat that again. 5,400 students. Okay? So then you have students that either they have an IEP or they have a 501 plan. And a lot of people don't know what a 501 plan is. And I'm going to explain that to you as well. So Total students in Chicago, around 54,000, have IEPs. Okay. The percentage of student body is approximately 16 to 17.3% of the students in Chicago public schools. That's a lot. It's important to understand the difference between an IEP and a 504 plan. An IEP is a document under Individuals with Disabilities in the Education Act, the IDEA. It ensures that students with disabilities receive specialized instructions and related services. Now, a 504 plan is a development to show that children who have disabilities identified under the Rehabilitation Act in 1973 receiving accommodations, right? So a student can have a 504 plan and they receive accommodations. It doesn't mean that they're in special education or they have a developmental delay, but they need extra time in certain things. And so it's a difference between the two, right? Now, I went a little further, right? And I asked AI, most common disabilities for children with IEPs in Illinois, because I wanted to do a more broader research, right? And the first one was specifically learning disabilities. That is 30% of the students receiving educational services in Illinois, right? Now, that could be dyslexia. That use an example for that. Ability to read and write or do math, right? But then number 2 is speech and language, which is 16.4%. And of course, that is language articulation, language comprehension, stuttering, and voice impaired. Then number 3 is health impairment, and that's 16.6. And that comes, that's where ADHD, ADD, hyperactivity, asthma, epilepsy, things like that, right? Then you have developmental delays, and that applies to children typically from the ages of 3 to 9 experiencing delays early on with physical, cognitive, communication, social, emotional, and adaptive development. This accounts for 13.4% of the IEPs in Illinois. Then you have autism. This disability has a significant disability has seen a significant increase in prevalence over last 2 decades. Now accounts for approximately 10.4 students with IEPs in Illinois, right? These are the top 5, but of course there's more. Now, we go into autism. What percentage of autistic people are not diagnosed? Older people are much less likely to have their autism diagnosed. A major new review has found. So it's a lot of people that were autistic that never got diagnosed. And I'm talking about a lot. So it says the investigation estimated that around 89% of autistic people between the age of 40 and 59 have never had the condition identified. For people over 60, the number jumps to 97%. That's crazy. So a lot of people that are older, right, over the age of 60, between 40 and 59, they've never been diagnosed, okay? The number of children not diagnosed with ODD, autism, and other mental disabilities, the majority of the children population. Conditions are below 100%, right? But for example, autism affects about 1 in 36 children. So that's between 2 and 16%. That's a global number. Now, autism spectrum, that's ASD. About 1 in 36 children, I'm going to repeat that again, in the United States has been identified with ASD. ODD, 2% to 16% of children. Some estimate it might be 3.6 to 6%. And mental illness in a whole, like with developmentally disabilities, are diagnosed 17% from the age of 3 to 17. This is in the world, right? Now, the high percentage of children with autism ODD co-occurs shows how the condition can overlap and have a child can be diagnosed with both. So some people have both. Some people are just not diagnosed with autism. Some people have autism and ODD. Some people have autism and ADHD. Some people have ODD and ADHD, right? It's important to remember that these are just a few of many conditions that can affect children. The number of children not diagnosed with a specific condition is significant and represents the majority of the children population we see. That's crazy work. So these children that are in these school systems, a lot of them have disabilities and they have never been diagnosed. So when we're going around saying, oh, we should beat them, we should they should go to jail, is that getting them the help that they need? Is that getting to the root of the problem? Okay, so I want to talk about this laughing disorder. So there's a lot of people, they don't know about it, a lot of, especially African American. I Googled when children laugh inappropriately or they're being reprimanded uncontrollably as a and then it says it's a pathological laughter. Okay, it's a neurological condition that causes sudden and uncontrollable episodes of laughing and or crying, often in response to emotions that don't match the outward expression. Right, this is a real condition. This is not just, oh, I made it up. So when they watched the video of the little girl and she did a little smile, it could have been that her mother was smiling at her because the lady that was on the panel with her was not her mother. It might could have been her mother smiling at her because her mother knew that she was uncomfortable and just giving her a little bit of comfort to do the right thing. But it also could have been a defense mechanism because she was having anxiety at that time, right? Because it says that this, and there's studies that have been done on this. We're going to give the Joker, for example, out of Batman. He does a lot of laughing, but yet he was psychotic. Laughter is used as a defense mechanism used to guard against overwhelming anxiety. So are we supposed to beat these kids to death because they're laughing and you think as a parent that is uneducated that they're being defiant? Okay, or they think it's funny when all it is a defense mechanism. Okay, and as a whole, as Americans, as people, a lot of us are very ignorant. Hey MM, hey Shamika. And this diagnosis, and it's a diagnosis, it comes with diminish the suffering associated with a traumatic event. So they do it with stress. They do it with shame. They're very they have very high sensitivity. So I don't believe beating them is the answer, because what happened the day before yesterday was very extreme. And it let me know that these children suffer from some type of illness. They need more than just a beating, because you can beat them, but is that fixing the problem? These children need psychological evaluations. We need to understand what made them think that this was okay. What made them laugh at somebody getting hurt? See, this is how serial killers are born. This is how serial killers are created, because they never got the help they needed when they were having these psychotic moments. And then it kept going on and on and on, and it was never stopped. A lot of serial killers have been to jail. It didn't stop them from killing. It didn't, or they have been arrested for minor things, not per se killing. And it took the authorities so long to find it, because a lot of these children are brilliant. They're brilliant. I don't know if y'all watched what was that man? He was sewing furniture with people's skin. He was also cutting off women's vaginas and keeping them as souvenirs. And when you watch the documentary, what was his name? Hey, DM. You guys are gonna have to go back and watch, because I covered some real information. What was his name, guys? That the man was keeping vaginas, as in his mother was in the household. He was another Norman Bates. Ed Gorham? No, what was his name? Ed. I can't, my brain ain't. But it's a documentary on Netflix. And he was a sociopath. He took on personalities of his mother, his brother. Like, he heard voices, and it started young from the abuse that he got from his mother. He even molested the mother when she had a stroke. But she was very she used religion to fuck with his head mentally. And he wound up killing his brother, living with the mother who was deceased. It was just a lot. It was like another Norman Bates. But I say that to say, had he got had they caught on early on about his psychotic behavior, he helped the feds catch Ted. Yes. And I'm gonna tell you another thing, like with Ted Bundy and what's his name? Oh goodness, that had he had the cult. Charles Manson with what's the one who used to lure the young boys? My brain is on a blank right now. Jeffrey Dahmer. So in Wisconsin, Jeffrey Dahmer was labeled mentally incompetent. But because the people in the community did not want him in the facility because they were afraid, they had a doctor make it to where he was competent to stand trial, and they would rather him had died in prison than to come out in the community. And that's what happened. They killed Jeffrey Dahmer in prison. Someone killed him because the community did not want him in the community. They were too afraid that he was just that smart that he would have got out and, you know, did some old crazy shit. But I say this to say that a lot of children, these millennium children, are not getting the services that they need. And they do crazy things, you know. Sometimes we are so crucial and so judgmental that we forget that we once were children and we didn't always make the right decisions. Children's brains are not fully developed. So they don't have that part that can rationalize and say, hell no, don't do that. It may sound crazy. You may think that your 10-year-old or your 9-year-old or your 12-year-old and even your 14-year-old, because we have some of children that develop later in life. They grow up, they mature later. But we may think that. And we also compare them to our children. And that's not right. You know why? Because our children are our children and those children are those children. And until we know the underlying reason, and there is, because these children that did this, some of them were being followers, some of them were being clout chasers, but some of them had some real mental issues. Hey, Shami. Some of them been needing help. Some of them were on medication and probably wasn't getting their medication. Some of them have never been diagnosed because their parents don't know what to look for. They think, you know, them being misbehaving is cute, you know, because that's their baby, you know. So I feel bad for them because we have a way of seeing something on social media and we just chop and screw the shit up. Like we just we pick the shit apart. And that's not helping the situation. You know, I hear people say beat them, 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 beat them. What is the kids? What happens to the kids that been beat and beat and beat and beat? Where does that help them? That they become abusive. Justin said those are the ones that are stupid as hell because they can get a check for those little retards. Lord have mercy. I mean, retards. So you know that we don't use that word anymore. It's they say developmentally delayed. We don't retard is they say it's harsh. But a lot of these kids were drug babies. Okay. They saying, oh, what the parent let them do this, the parent let them do that. Some of these kids don't live with their parent. Some of these kids probably may be in the system. We don't know. But I just hope that they, get these kids some help because they need resources too. They do. Because to beat someone and laugh, not even because it was a mother, but to beat someone and laugh that was innocent and did nothing to you, that's a sickness. That showed me something was wrong. I don't know about everybody else, but something is, there's a disconnect somewhere. So I just wanted to tell you. And so A lot of people think that like autism means, and a lot of parents do, that autism means that they're retarded. No, it doesn't, because Einstein was autistic. Rain Man was autistic. There are a lot of adult celebrities that are finding out that they are autistic, and that means you have sensory issues, meaning you're sensitive to a lot of things, but your emotions are not meeting your sensitivity level. Like you could jump off the bed and break your leg and you don't feel any pain. You can cut your finger and not feel any pain, but you see the blood and you freak out. A lot of kids don't know the difference between hot and cold. So they will go and touch the stove and get their hands burnt and not have a reaction as if me and you touched it. So then they have to learn that these things are hot, or not to do this and not to do that. Yes, um, Keanu Reeves, he's autistic. Yes, John in the John Wick movie. Yes, so it's a lot of them that are autistic. You wouldn't even know, because the first diagnosis of autism was called Asperger's. And that was the mild case, but they still had sensory issues, like to noise, to light, to taste. They don't like things too mushy. They don't like, it's a texture thing for them. Um, when I found out that my son had these issues, I brought him an electric toothbrush to stimulate his tongue. He didn't talk like at first like normal children, but yet he was very, very smart. But he would do a lot of crying because he couldn't articulate to me his needs and his wants. And the iPad, believe it or not, people think like, oh, these electronic devices are taking over the children. But that helped me communicate with my son, because he was able to speak into the thing or scroll and show me what he wanted. So then I got him a iPad censored with all his sensory and all his needs. And he was able to press it and tell me, I want juice, I want milk, I want to color, I want to go outside, I want to play. How are you feeling? I'm happy. He would press his happy face. And eventually him start to hearing these words, because believe it or not, children teach children. You adults think they teach children, but there's a statistic that says that children teach children. So if you have a child that's the only child and it's never been around other children, they will lack the social skill with engaging with their peers. So if you have a child that has autism and things like that, they should play with other children that their age. It doesn't mean that they need to play with children that have autism, but they need to play with children their age so that they can learn. They learn faster. And so that's what I did. I put him in daycare early. I put him in school early. I paid for him to go to school because it was important. And then he started talking. And then he wouldn't shut up. A lot of people would look at my son and be like, oh, nothing is wrong with him, until he has his meltdowns. When he has his episodes, then they'd be like, oh shit, how you deal with this, But to the naked eye, nobody would ever notice, because he does everything that a regular kid does and more. But he's brilliant. And when I say brilliant, at the age of 3, he told me, 3, 4, he told me he wanted to be an anthropologist. First, he said he wanted to be an archaeologist. Then he told me he wanted to be an anthropologist because he said dinosaur bones didn't exist. So he was very smart. In the school system, they use a device called a talker. It's just like an iPad. It helps them communicate what they need. Yes. And now I'm starting to see it more and more. But at that time, my son, they didn't have that. My son is older now, but they didn't have that. So I always knew he was a little different. You know what I mean? Um, but mothers know. Not all mothers, because some of them are in la la land, but an in tune mother knows when something is wrong with their child. Now, a lot of mothers are in denial, and they like to buy their kids and pacify them and put a video game or a tablet in front of them to babysit them to keep them quiet. But I wasn't one of those. And another thing I learned with children that have ADHD, autism, is you have to reduce their sugar intake because we naturally produce sugar and then they intake sugar. So my son didn't have junk food. He didn't have artificial sugar. He didn't have GMOs. He had nothing. He had all natural, organic for 5-6 years of his life because I was determined to conquer this. And when I tell you, my baby, if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. But a lot of behaviors came, and then they diagnosed him with ODD. And it made sense because a lot of people, I wouldn't leave him because they would tell me I wouldn't leave him with nobody because they say, girl, somebody gonna beat him. I remember put him in daycare, babysitter, and she told me don't leave him with nobody because they're gonna beat him. And I was like, beat my baby? And she was like, girl, they gonna beat him because my son is like he gonna go to bat with you, but he's gonna do it in a respectful way. But he's gonna question your shit. Like if you tell him, and he is, and if it's something that he really doesn't want to do, he's not gonna do it. He's one of those. And I remember my brain surgeon telling me that he's resilient, and that's how you create brain surgeons. And I didn't understand it when he said it, but my son can, off the top of his head, do a mathematic problem, tell me the answer to it. I will cross-reference it to make sure he's right, and then ask him to repeat it, and he cannot. So when things like that, like he would tell me, there's 500 and something bones in the body at 4 years old. He's telling me this. And I'm like, let me Google this shit. And damn it if he wasn't right. He taught me so much. I mean, about animals, and he loved dinosaurs, and he could tell me about every dinosaur, every bone they had. Then one day he came and told me, he said, Mom, dinosaurs are not real. So then he said he just wants to discover artifacts in other animal fossils. And I asked him why did he say dinosaurs weren't real, and then he broke it down to me, and I was like, oh shit. So yeah, he's smart. He's smart. And it's a lot of these kids that are smart and they're not being challenged in school. They're not interested. We all do not learn the same way. But for some reason, they have created this school system to where all our children are supposed to learn, the same. And in Japan and in Asia, these kids are learning life skills, how to sew, how to build, how to program computers, how to cook. They're learning book work, but they also were learning life skills. They're cutting all them damn programs in the schools. They barely want to do home ec. They barely want to do shit. They don't even got textbooks no more. I ain't seen a textbook in years. Then they go to teaching them history and coming to find out that the history ain't history. It's a lie. So these kids are losing their interest in school. And they're not being challenged. And they're not being evaluated. So they're bored. They're bored. they're distracted. And then they have these inclusion classes where these children are in the class with severe people that have severe autism, severe ADHD, severe ODD, and they're disrupting the class. I remember my son, what grade you was in? Fourth when we came here?
Third grade.
Third grade. And we came from Florida, and he was in his first inclusion class with kids that had disabilities. And he came home and he was like, "Ma, it's a retarded kid in the class. And he just makes all types of obscene noises. And how can I concentrate? How can I focus?" And I was caught off guard. I didn't even know how to explain it to him. I was just like, and it took me a second. I had to really think about it. And I had to tell him, like, you have siblings that have disabilities, so you should understand firsthand. But then he was saying, well, how can he misbehave and throw things and do all kind of things and he doesn't get in trouble, but if I try to do it, I get in trouble? So it's hard for me to get him to behave in class because he had these students that were in the class and they had behaviors, which made me want to go work in the school because I never understood that. We had, where I come from, special ed had their own classes. Shit, some kids with disability had their own schools. So to come to a place that had inclusion classes, it was an adjustment. It was adjustment for my kids. And I feel like that's a problem. But you got people that advocate for people that have disabilities. They don't want them to be isolated. They don't want them to be not included. They want them to have regular lives, which is understandable. But there got to be some level to it. But not here where we live. In different places, the inclusion classes is the inclusion classes. And so I was wondering, like, what are these kids learning? What are they really, really learning if half the time the class is being disrupted? So I don't know. I've learned living out here in the Midwest, there's families that have 2 and 3 and 4 children that have disabilities, going from severe to mild. I'm wondering if it's something in the air or something in what they drinking, because I have never. I see one, but I'm talking about majority of the house. Mom getting like 3, 4 SSI checks because the kids got disabilities. I'm like, wow, this is interesting, and that made me want to look into it even more and dig more deeper and find out, like, is there something that's causing these effects? And then you have the alcohol syndrome, them babies that grow up, and you have drug addicted children, so all of that plays a major part in how these kids are growing up. Because if you're not getting them the help and the services that they need, and the number one thing is put them on medication. I am strongly against medication unless it is like a dying need. Because I think about all these diagnoses that they have now. Where were they back in the day? So what did the people do when there were no diagnoses? They had to deal with their children, So I think that with the medication, they get on these they put these kids on the medication that has more side effects, that cause more problems. Some of them hearing voices, schizophrenia, things like that. And then They get to a certain age, 16, 17, 18, and then they don't take the medication anymore. And now they bug the fuck out. Like they bugged out, or they go to prison and they on the medication, and then when they come out of the prison, they crazy because they don't have the resources to fill the prescription to get the medication. So now they out here just bugged out, killing people, snapping, tweaking out because they've been on medication most of their life. And so now the body has gotten used to it and it doesn't know how to adapt without it. Not only that, then they start to self-medicate. And so that's where the marijuana comes in and the gateway shit. And next thing some people done gave them some other shit they done tweaked out. Some people, they trying different things, done tweaked out, and they go on this trip and they just never come back. So a lot of, like, I'm gonna use an example. My day and time, and it's big now too. They was smoking the embalming fluid. We called it leaky leak, or we called it what was the other word? Dip, where they dip the cigarette in the embalming fluid and smoke it, and then be fucking hallucinating and bug the fuck out. So a lot of these people you think just snapping. No, a lot of them it's their environment. They have drug habits. A lot of these children that are doing have these behaviors, they're a product of their environment. And it's a level, like state level, government level, until we can get a hold of that and start getting to the root of the problem, we're going to have these stories where kids are jumping on a mother and her child, the shootings, the killings, the unaliving, the suicides, because they're not addressing the issue, whatever it may be. So it's fortunate that you don't have family members that have these issues, but there are a lot of poverty-stricken families in these urban areas that have issues, a lot of trauma, have been neglected, have been unloved, and they turn to drugs. The new thing with these children is popping pills. I didn't hear 13-year-olds, 10-year-olds, they taking Percocets, the opium addiction. They're taking Adderall. They're taking these medications, and the parents too, that when they don't have it, they can't function, which leads to bigger problems. Because I didn't believe that growing up, a person said, I want to be a crackhead. I want to be a dope fiend. I want to be an alcoholic. And that's another thing. Alcoholism is real. People don't feel that they are alcoholics. They have no problems. They just drink and they drink until they get cirrhosis of the liver, kidney failure, and then they can't drink. And it's too late to reverse those issues. But people didn't, what you want to be when you grow up? 6th grade, I want to be a drunk. I want to be a pill popper. I want to be a thief. I want to be a murderer. I want to be a bully. No, these are learned behaviors. You did something once, it felt good, and you continue to do it. So, we need to love on our children more. We need to stop being so judgmental. We need to get all the information and not just see a video And no, that family did not deserve that. But we got a bigger and deeper problem in Chicago, in these urban areas and within the inner city. These people are not getting the resources and the services that they need. And with the fundings that the president and all these people cut, they're not never going to get it. You know, we got Medicaid is full of shit. You get the bare minimum. You know that there is a board. Say you needed a heart or a kidney. With Medicaid, there is a board that decides your life. If you're worth them giving you a kidney, if you're worth getting a heart, you go on this list and they sit around a round table like the mafia and they decide if you're worthy enough to get it. You know, Rockefeller done had about 2 or 3 hearts. That old, he done had about 2 or 3 hearts. You try to get a heart and see if you can get just one, because money talks and bullshit walks. So we need to do better as a people. Start taking care of our bodies. Start taking care of our minds. Start taking care of our spirits, so that we can instill good shit into our children. Because they say it takes a village. The village is definitely segregated and tore apart. Well, anybody want to share anything that I said? I know I said a lot. I had a mouthful. I'm going to drop the link. If you just want to come up and express anything, you can. I don't bite. We can agree to disagree. But I just wanted to share that with you guys, because I'm going and I'm listening to some of these platforms. I don't agree. It's called generational curses. If you weren't taught the right way, how can you teach your children the right way? Right? You know, if you grew up thinking that the shit was okay, why wouldn't your children not think that it was okay? I had to take a drink. So I just wanted to come live. I didn't want to stay too long. Good hour, because I got the weekend and I got some good shit to talk about this weekend. A little secret, but I'm like Joe Clark. Very no nonsense, but I like to teach the children. I don't care if they my children, your children. And a lot of parents, I'm noticing, when you teach these children something that they weren't able to teach them, they get angry. They get jealous. They start a whole bunch of confrontation and ruckus. So I don't even extend my olive branch anymore. I sit back and I just watch, because my time is valuable. I don't got time for someone to be taking my time for granted. But we should be teaching each other's children. We should be watching out for each other's children. But yeah, the villagers toe up, because it becomes a competition type thing. I ain't in competition with nobody but myself. How I can do better. So once I see that you got that kind of trait or whatever, I backs my ass on up. Because kids love me. People say I'm mean, but when I say they love me, they love being around me. And they don't give me no problems. People wouldn't even believe it. They don't give me no problem. It was times that I had 15, 20 children in my house spending the night. They clean up. They won't clean up in their own damn house, but they'll clean up in my house. I teach them how to cook. Teach them how to sew. They paint. They dance. Laugh. To the point where some of them would cry. They didn't even want to go home. I had kids at my house for weeks. I'm like, you got to go home. They don't want to go home. So I don't know. And I don't do that anymore because out here in the Midwest, I ain't never, these some ignorant ass people. They ignorant. And I don't got time. I don't beat up nobody mother. Because the way you run your house is the way you run your house. But the way I run my house is totally different. We have chores. We have roles and responsibilities. We clean up after ourselves. We practice good hygiene. I teach the kids how to wash their clothes. Yeah. I teach them responsibility. When you're at my house, you get to go outside. If I say be in the house at this time, you're in the house at this time. You don't come in at this time, then you don't go outside tomorrow. And I'm talking about the whole summer, kids be in my house. And then the parents, you listen to her, but you won't listen to me. You know what I mean? Or you'll clean her house, but you won't clean your own house, you know? Hey, Cake Tail. And I just got tired of that because it was starting to annoy me. Because I don't ask for respect, I demand respect. I am the authority figure in my house. Now, if you want to be lenient and passive, I tell my kids, if you do not clean your room, don't ask me to go outside. Don't ask me to do extracurricular activities because you have a job. Your job is to keep your room clean. Your job is to do your chores on Saturday. I've been like this for years. I'm not bending. I don't care about crying, stomping, kicking. You might get more time for doing all that foolishness. But some parents don't know how to put boundaries for children. They don't want to be mean because they compensating for the children not having a father, or them having to work all the time, or, just feeling bad. So they compensate them and they buy them. I don't buy my children. My children are spoiled because they get good grades. They do what I ask. I don't have to hoop and holler and scream. If I call my son right now and I asked him, go take the garbage out, he's not going to give me no lip. If I tell him right now, go clean the bathroom, he's not going to give me no lip. You know why? Because when he wants $50 come Saturday, I'm going to give him the same energy. So if he doesn't do it, then he doesn't get anything. I'm not rewarding bad behavior. I never did, and I'm not going to. So I'm not mean. I'm just Joe Clark. I'm the Joe Clark of this house. And you're right, Caketail. They want to be their friend. I am not my children's friend. I am their mother. When they hit a certain age, 18, they're adult, or 20, where when they move out and they're in their own house, then we can be a little bit more on a friendly basis. But I'm still going to tell them right from wrong. And I'm going to also tell them, you don't have to take my advice. You're an adult. But I, as a parent, I'm going to tell you this. Because I wouldn't be a good parent if I didn't. Right? But they're going to ultimately make their own decision. And I have to respect that as well. And I have to be able to dust their, hug them, kiss them, and dust their knees off when they don't make the right decision and they got a boo-boo, an adult boo-boo. But I'm also going to tell them or ask them, what did you learn from this? So that it doesn't happen again. Because I'm not a person that likes to keep repeating a cycle or things. It doesn't take me 50 times to learn one lesson. So, just some food for thought. Make sure y'all like the video, share it if you can. And go back and listen, and you might learn something. Each one teach one. Good night, everybody. Peace, love, and light, and I'll talk to you guys later.